VGF, that's code. It's an acronym for video game freak. So if you have any idea of what we're about to get into today, oh yeah, it's going to be dealing with games. We're talking about some really OG stuff too. We're talking about Punk's Comics, Wolf Game, and this new game Battle Plan, and sort of how it all comes together. Welcome VGF.
Thank you, sir. Excited to jump into it.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to have you again because I'm coming from this really as just from a curiosity standpoint. I met director of community Epotamus, and we're just kind of vibing. He was telling me about like all these elements involved in Pixel Vault, and I was like, they're familiar stories, but I didn't know they were all connected. I'm just like, wait, Punk's Comics and Wolf Game, and then also this new game Battle Plan, and so I really wanted to try and find out how it all came together. But first and foremost, I find it very exciting to talk to you because you're also, one of us. You're one of us. You came from the community and you crossed into the other side a long time ago. And so walk me through that journey of just like, hey, I'm into crypto, I'm into NFTs. And how did you get hired to become part of the team?
So early 2021, I had been a passive observer of crypto for a number of years, but I hadn't actually made my first crypto purchase until January of 21. Very quickly thereafter, got like really into the deep end of NFTs. And when the concept of kind of digital sovereignty and ownership of your digital stuff clicked for me, I was all in. I like literally took about a month to get my affairs in order, left my comfortable position behind, and was
divorced all three of your wives and made your own way into the world.
I had no significant other at the time, and very little, responsibilities or overhead, and so it was nice because sorry, pardon my dogs in the back.
Well, there's a significant other.
Yeah, about as close as I've gotten. But
welcome to Web3 romance.
Yeah, but it was interesting because I was treating it like a job. I was working full time in Web3 before I was being paid to do so. And very early on, my initial contribution was in building out Discords. From video game streaming, so I was very capable in building and scaling out Discords early on, with a high priority in security. And so that was like my offering. That was my thing to bring to the table early on. And that brought me a lot of networking and connections that I'm very grateful to have, held and maintained till today. But one of those was in building out the Pixel Vault Discord. And so it literally started with a DM. It was, hey, I'm a fan of this project. I thought it was, something cool and interesting around the concept of IP development. And I'm a huge fan of comics and stuff too. And so I just reached out like, hey, can I be of service in this way? And very quickly thereafter, it was like, okay, I've got my foot in the door. How else can I add value here? And, in a prior life, I had worked operations and marketing, a little bit of logistics. So when we were talking about, shipping 10,000 comics from potentially from Australia to the US and, kind of the headaches that would be involved there. It got me a little deeper into the conversations with the team, and it was kind of off to the races from there. I've kind of run the gamut of going from the community to marketing to operations to now on the kind of back full circle to community and outreach, a little bit of biz dev. And yeah,
it's what you do in this space. You come in, you bare your soul. You're like, this is me, because there aren't very many, as defined definitive roles, and there aren't enough people to wear all the hats in a sense. So you have to wear a lot of hats in this space. It's it seems just to even survive, aka also just get involved. And so you bring a lot of yourself from wherever you're coming from, and you're like, hey, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, because you need to wear a lot of hats, it seems, on these projects.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I joke about it, but one of like, in my opinion, one of the best skills that you can have in Web3 is rolling with the punches. You know, like there's a lot of trials that will come with trying to maintain and hopefully grow a community. And what, like a community, even that, just that word feels like a bit of a buzzword. But how do you foster those interconnections between this group of people that has this shared common interest and goal? um and so yeah, it's definitely kind of like an evolving, ever iterating problem that I don't think has a perfect solve.
Well, what is your tips with your experience? It seems like 3 years in this space. What sort of tips would you give for somebody who is starting out to try and develop their community around, their IP that they wanted to create, or a derivative maybe that they're making?
Uh, a big thing that I'm seeing, even especially, in the last few months, we're seeing a lot of, projects that are struggling now, managing of expectations. We've had some of those, problems ourselves.
So don't buy Moonbird, you're saying. Gotcha. Let me check that there.
I think that I think Kevin Rose specifically is well intentioned. I do think that he is maybe a good actor that has had some interesting missteps along the way. But we similarly have not been perfect. We're very open and vocal about our missteps. And for me personally, that's one of those things you almost have to lean into, because in a space where we talk about transparency and all of these things, it's one of those where you can either shy away from it and try and sweep it under the rug and hide it, or you can lean into it and try and iterate and evolve and continue to grow past it with your community and your holders. And so that's something that it can be painful. And certainly there, have been some times in 21, 22, and 23 that were less than comfortable for us. But I think it's part of the process. If you want to be here for the long haul, then not everything's going to be up only forever. And learning how to manage and roll with those punches it's like a superpower.
A lot of improvisation. Honestly, a lot of the teams that I'm on have a lot of improvisers, like professional improvisers who've trained. And I knew, like, oh God, I can talk to these people in this way, and I know that how quick they're able to shift, not just in conversations but with ideas. And I think that that's very, very important in this space. And it sounds like that's part of the evolution of Pixel Vault, where it's Punk's Comics. Walk me through how this iteration goes from Punk's Comics, Metal Hero, Flash Wolf game, and then into Battle Plan.
So early on, we had Punk's Comic as the initial IP, but it wasn't really a PFP. And so Metal Hero,
by the way, just asterisk for everybody who doesn't know, Punk's Comics was I guess it was a derivative of CryptoPunks, where they took the IP that they own the punks of and created a comic book with them.
So yeah, it was a Chris Wall interpretation of some of these original CryptoPunk characters, and building the story and the lore around them in a really, like, truly Web3 kind of way. Like, there's a lot of memes, a lot of references, a lot of interconnectivity between other certain projects that are referenced in the comics. Punk's Comic 2 was a cross collab between G Money, Bored Apes, Adidas, and ourselves. And so that was a really big kind of a pivotal moment for us in showing how you can develop these IPs in a collaborative way. And so from there we introduced Meta Heroes, which was our native PFP, kind of based in this superhero fantastical kind of universe. And the aspiration there was basically a hard pivot into gaming. And it's been really interesting to kind of follow this journey, because I'm a gamer myself, you know, like
You don't say, with
yeah,
this name, VGF, Video Game Freak.
yeah, and so that's always kind of, I think, been the North Star, but how we got there was unclear. And I would say that the moment that became much more clear was when Aaron St. John Goose Eggs joined the team. It was kind of honestly a little backwards, because he came in and was almost interviewing us, you know, as if we were, you know, we were applying to be his team.
That's how the best do it.
It kind of was that way. And so that was the seed of what would become Reboot and eventually Battle Plan. And so late last year, you know, we had you know, acquired Wolf Game. Wolf Game will be the next game coming to Reboot. And so we have kind of these seedings of Battle Plan, Wolf Game, and then some of our partner communities that'll be bringing their games to Reboot as well. Kind of fleshing out what it looks like to have these really Web3 native, massively on-chain gaming experiences enabled and supported by the protocol that is Reboot.
And that's the fascinating part, is you're looking not only to create the gaming, but also incorporate these communities. And, you know, these communities come with, you know, very specific characters and, you know, and traits. And how is that your guys are incorporating all of these different community perspectives into games?
Sure. And so I think, at least in my mind, it's kind of what sets this apart, right? Like through especially 22 and 23, we saw a lot of these quote unquote gaming experiences that were essentially gamified DeFi, right? You know, it was a pretty UI UX interface, like choose where to stake your thing, or choose what place to, you know, what, you know, group you're going to place yourself in. But the gaming experience itself was, you know, maybe not as involved or as fun as a lot of people would have liked it to be. And so
there's a big difference between gamified and gaming, right? It's just like there's
and it is a spectrum. And so I don't want to detract away from those where like that is their jam. Like if it is, more power to you. It's certainly not mine. But like Battle Plan, I think, at least in my mind, is like a very standout example of a really fun game. That you, like, when people, and I used this argument myself quite a few times, of like when people ask, why don't you play Web3 games? And it's like, oh, well, most Web3 games suck, or like aren't very much fun. I use that argument myself a lot because, you know, I was still playing Fortnite and Apex and Call of Duty and all of these other games, like while professing to be in Web3 gaming. But I really look at those, you know, look for those games that are game first, gameplay first, fun first, and then enabled by the Web3 rails, right? Like, what is the value to the end user in why this thing should be Web3 or blockchain backed? And, you know, what value does the gamer get out of that experience, without it necessarily being so janky or all of that friction of onboarding that can make that process so difficult.
It is, and it's the scary part when you talk. You know, you just add that Web3 gaming part of it. You're like, oh crap, now I have to get my wallet and all these sort of things. But you know, making the game fun is obviously what everyone's really focused in on right now, and then how to make that communal makes that sort of it gives it that Web3 vibe, and it makes it almost like worth trying to like sort out the wallet stuff for. And then, as you said, then there's that sort of next layer of invisibility where you're scaling to everybody who just wants to join in a fun game. How has that development been for you guys? Like having that core developer, when you said you brought on that developer, then do you just like let them have the keys to the kingdom and say make the best game possible?
Yeah, I think distilling Goose Eggs down as just a developer is a very dramatic understatement. But yeah, effectively, it was sort of that, because he's got 20 plus years experience in both game development, ecosystem development. Just so happened to have gone to school for his PhD in cryptography. Like, if you could design a human being to kind of build an ecosystem around, it is Goose Eggs. And so he had this
shield battery. Everybody that's ever ran shield battery had
got the video going in the back.
Yeah, well, you had Bryson and Farouk going at it in a recent session, and I thought it was just kind of fascinating. That's where I started seeing some of the gameplay in action. And so when you guys were sitting down with I don't know what to call Goose Egg now, the creator.
Yeah, I believe his title is VP of Gaming, and I think he's got someone else tacked onto the end of the title, but VP of Gaming.
But a creative, who's going to develop the game, do you bring reference and say like, hey, we're thinking kind of like this, or do you give them the vision of the world? Like, what's that process like to get to what we're seeing here with Farouk and Bryson playing each other?
Well, and so part of it was leaning in towards how do we have this list of goals, right? Like, of how we want to enable and support the IP, enable the holdership, to be able to leverage their characters and their IP in the game. There needs to have some economic value and an incentive exchange there.
Does he handle that as well, or do you guys have like an economist of sense who's working with tokenomics?
Goose Eggs is largely, I would put him at the top of that hierarchy. But we do have economists specifically, working on economy management, game balancing, things like that as well. But the auto battler, which is kind of the style of game battle plan, was kind of a natural fit. Battle plan is kind of a mix between like an auto chess style game with maybe almost like a little bit of a TCG kind of deck builder with your deck skill management, but it just visually comes off and kind of appears like a little bit of a fighting game. And so it's got these brawler animations of these superheroes beating the crap out of each other. But strategically, it's definitely more of a front-loaded strategy game than it is, a button smasher.
Just a little bit more than just the melee. I don't know how much alpha you can get into, but I'm really excited at the idea of acquisition of Wolfgame, because everyone knows the name, and they kind of get a sense of maybe the mechanics if they've played with it a little bit. But can you give us a sneak peek of the vision of what that looks like under your guys' stewardship?
Yeah, so I think when we acquired Wolfgame, there was some hesitation or apprehension from the community that we were gonna come in and just clean house, right?
Yeah.
And that definitely wasn't the case. We came in and wanted to help support the current vision and iteration of what Wolfgame now is and could be, while simultaneously kind of dual tracking the development of Wolfgame 2, which will be built on Reboot. And so
is there like a subtitle name, like Wolfgame 2, The Wolfening?
Not anything that I know is public as of yet. But yeah, it's been interesting because we had this vision for what our team, the existing Wolfgame team, and Shep had for the current Wolfgame gaming experience, and then a combination of the opportunity and potential that the existing team in combination with our team and Goose Eggs had for what Wolfgame 2 could be. And so just recently we saw the launch of the most recent iteration for for Wolf Game. And it's been pretty spectacularly well received. I think we're up like something like 300% activity of sheep are on the farm, and like the sentiment around the community has been incredibly strong. We recently had that like 6+ minute animation go live that was just kind of stellar. For those that like that kind of 8-bit pixelized art theme. So there's been a lot of development and work in the books on just refining the existing Wolf Game. And then, of course, our focus pretty much the rest of the year with Wolf Game will be on development of the next iteration, which is going to be Wolf Game built on Reboot.
Which is like what, first-person shooter? What are you guys thinking?
I don't know that I want to go into too many details there yet.
Good. I know. I'm trying to extract a little bit of alpha because
I can't blame you. I can't blame you.
I think it's a really fantastic get in a sense. Is it something that you guys are constantly looking at acquisitions in order to develop these brands? Because you're coming in with a name brand recognition that everyone's going to be a little interested in investigating early on.
I wouldn't say that it's something we're actively looking for. We have been approached by a handful of communities that were interested or looking for acquisition. Mm-hmm. And the reality that a lot of times, especially with the recent acquisitions on the timeline, a lot of the piece that people may not see or like to talk about is that a lot of times it's not even worth acquiring these projects.
Welcome to Battle Plan.
Oh, let me turn on the bottom.
The amount of execution debt and baggage that comes with a lot of these projects oftentimes is simply not even worth paying a penny for.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's a difference between like the business perspective and like the reality of it versus maybe the sentiment of like thinking that these IPs may be worth hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars.
Nearly $250 million if you guys play your cards right, guys.
Yeah. And so the fulfillment of expectations and promises of the existing or past teams and things like that can really add up really quickly. And so Wolf Game was a standout example of a community that had an incredible amount of overlap of interest with our own. These are like the hyper engaged gamer types already that had kind of a foundation already laid for what we could see continuing to build and iterate on to incorporate with this protocol being developed. And so it was kind of a natural fit and just all the way around the board made sense, which is kind of, rare. In a lot of those conversations, it's kind of like, oh, how do you like MacGyver jerry rig it to try and make it work?
Right.
And with Wolf Game, with Pixel Vault, it was just, it made too much sense.
A match made in heaven. And I think that as you guys are developing, do you feel the heat and the pressure as this cycle turns for everybody from metaverse into gaming? Suddenly that's the meta. Suddenly everybody's into gaming. Do you guys feel the pressure now where you have Fortnite, just saying, hey, build a land and this is how you can make money from this fund, and a lot of projects are developing there, or I think other side is developing something maybe potentially similar. I think a lot of places are trying to give everybody that jump start into it versus starting from the ground up. What sort of pressures are you guys feeling in this new cycle?
I think some of that pressure we've felt like since 2021, 2022. Like Sean G Funk has this saying he harps on a bit about skating to where the puck is going. Like we've seen and kind of foresaw that this is where the ultimate quote unquote utility comes from, right? Like in the development of these Web3 projects, there is going to be this need and desire to offer products, services, and experiences that people are willing to pay for. And gaming felt like the most natural marriage, at least for us, in being able to provide that kind of experience. And so I think this is kind of like the pressure coming to actualization.
You've been living with it for years, so this is nothing to you. Now it's just about trying to deliver.
Well, and now that it's live, and Battle Plan is available, open access. The protocol is chugging along and consistently being improved upon. Now it's kind of like, okay, it's time. The brawler itself is constantly going in rebalancing updates, the economy being refined. Now we're kind of simultaneously developing out what the additional rollout of characters and things like that will look like, new skills being incorporated, things like that, and eventually what new games on the protocol will look like for the economy. So all exciting things, but now it's kind of like we've been building this thing for a couple of years now, and now it's really real, right? Like now that it's active and live and out there. When the game went live, that was like a big moment. It was like, okay, this is really, really real now.
Walk me through that emotion, because like I've just only experienced like mints and stuff like this. Is like a game going live. Did you guys have to stage like an event and like kind of have like press ready to go, and walk me through that emotion, that emotional roller coaster? It sounds like.
Yeah, it was a bit of a roller coaster, because it's not something that happens like with the flip of a switch, especially when we were simultaneously trying to like launch a protocol, a token, and then a fast follow with the launch of the game. And so it was a little more of a marathon than a sprint. But it was funny because we had a war room set up. We're a fully remote company, so we were on these Zoom calls, and it's effectively like the entire team. We're more than 50. I think we might be over 60 employees now. I mean, like a not insignificant sized game studio within Pixel Vault. And so it was basically all hands on deck, through the holidays, through the new year, through the launch of the protocol and the token, and then continuing that sprint through the launch of the game and now, live service. So it has definitely been, a challenge, but I like to feel that we're balancing it as well as we can.
With that macro view of understanding sort of what's now available, I think sometimes it's a little hard for us just normies in a sense, who see this and, oh cool, I want to check out Battle Plan. Do I need to get a meta hero first? Do I just go to the website? How do I what's the first initial steps for somebody who wants to try out Battle Plan?
Sure. So first of all, you do not need any NFTs to play. So there are value adds to having some of the NFTs in the ecosystem, but none of them are required. You only need GG in the form of game credits to play. So it's sort of like an arcade model. Like you would go to an arcade, you would put your coin in the machine, and then depending on how well you play, you would get tickets out. Very similarly with Reboot and Battle Plan, you put your credits in, and then depending on how well you play, you get tickets out. Those tickets can be either spent on in-game items, skills, and things like that, or via extractors taken back out into Liquid GG. So there is a little bit of playthrough to unlocking that liquidity, but it's very much a game of skill where it is true PvP. You can, in some instances lose some of that, wager, but that also unlocks the potential and opportunity for earning more than you put in.
No, not financial advice, but how many millions of dollars a day should I be expected to make while playing this game?
Maybe not millions of dollars as of yet, but we do have some battle plan grinders that are averaging in the hundreds of dollars per day.
Let's go.
So that has been like really exciting to see. And then, you know, some of the people like working on kind of the meta layers of this, you know, people that are doing, you know, skill trading or arbitraging the extractor ecosystem, or, you know, playing the day trading game of, you know, the token itself. There's a lot of these kind of meta layers to the economic game, rather than just
a little
the
mini
video
game.
And so it's been fun to see, because, you know, whether video games are really, you know, your jam and you're just trying to play and have fun playing a game, or you're trying to, you know, play the meta game of these kind of different economic layers to the game. There's a lot of avenues of approach to how you can kind of take your avenue of choice. But I think baseline, all you need is GG to play the game, at least for stakes. There is a free play mode, which you can, if you go to the top of the vault, that first link I had sent you, there is a free play mode at the top menu bar. And that can kind of like get you introduced, get your feet wet, kind of, you know, get a feel for the tooltips and like how you can approach the game and form a little bit of the basis of like your starting strategy before you go and put like, you know, GG on the line.
And getting, you know, just familiarity and see if you like the game. That's always a good thing.
Yeah. Like I'm strong. I have strong belief that like you should be able to try and kind of say, hey, I actually like this game before you have to go out and acquire a token or an NFT in order to play it.
You should interview that game, much like Goose Egg did to you, and walk it through and take it on a date, buy it dinner, and have fun with it. And I think there's a lot of fun to be had. Eventually, you are going to also have, as you said, with the meta hero component, each person is going to be able to bring in their traits into these games, right?
Correct. Yeah. So the initial available characters are some of our meta hero core characters, and it's kind of like baby steps towards incorporating of the generative identity collection. And so once all of the core identities are available characters, that means all of the generative identity traits will be in the game. And so there's maybe without going too deep into it, we had to create a custom pipeline of how to generate these characters in engine based on their NFT metadata, because there are a lot of meta heroes that have not yet been minted from their mint passes. And so how do you create these hand-drawn animated characters for characters that you don't know what they look like yet?
Let alone 10,000 of these personalized things, and you want your person to look like the thing that you got. And it's satisfying, because then you have that level, I think, of mild, when I did like a second trip, for instance, it's just like when you just at least have that recognition of like, oh, hey, that's my friend. They're there. That's like I talk to to VGF all the time on Discord, and there he is. And now I can go beat him up. This is amazing. Like, just being able to have that personality attached to it is quote unquote game changing. I think a lot of people are placing that bet here in this space, but I'm excited about your guys' progress and hope to have you back when things have advanced. And thank you for this introduction into Battle Plan. This is exciting stuff.
Thank you very much. I appreciate chatting with you, and glad to be back whenever we have some more to talk about.
All right, we'll see you next time.